There is a very specific, heavy resistance that happens the exact second your hand touches the cold metal handle of a heavy glass door at a suburban Target or a crowded Whole Foods on a Sunday afternoon. It isn't just the physical weight of the door you're fighting against, it's the invisible wall of energy waiting on the other side. For most people, walking into a busy store is just a series of mundane errands. Grab the milk, find the laundry detergent, get out. But for the person who hates crowded places, it's an immersive, high-stakes tactical mission. They aren't just shopping, they are managing a sensory budget that is being depleted at an alarming rate. The moment the door swings open, the broadcast begins in full, uncompressed 8K resolution. They notice the way the fluorescent lights hum at a frequency that seems to vibrate in the very back of their skull. They hear the rhythmic, high-pitched squeak of a wobbly shopping cart wheel 3 aisles over as if it's happening right next to their ear. They feel the frantic, hurried energy of 100 strangers brushing against their own nervous system like static electricity from a wool blanket. This isn't social anxiety in the way a clinical textbook might describe it. This is what it looks like when a brain refuses to ignore the details. The cost of that clarity is a profound, bone-deep exhaustion that most people will never have to pay. If you've ever watched this person at a classic American backyard barbecue or a loud, echoey office holiday party, you'll see them performing a very specific social dance. They're usually the ones standing near the periphery, maybe holding a red Solo cup like it's a physical anchor to reality. While everyone else is effortlessly bouncing from one surface-level conversation to the next, this person's brain is performing a full-scale forensic audit of the entire room. They aren't just listening to the story their coworker is telling, they are unintentionally recording the 4 other conversations happening within a 15-foot radius. They're noticing the subtle way the host's smile flickers and fades the moment they turn away from a guest. They're tracking the movement of people near the kitchen, not because they're paranoid, but because their internal GPS needs to know exactly where the escape hatch is at all times. This is the exit plan mentality. It's why they prefer to be the one driving, why they park in the spot that's easiest to pull out of, and why they know exactly how much social currency they have left before their internal battery hits zero. For them, freedom isn't about being part of the crowd. Freedom is the ironclad knowledge that the door to their sanctuary is always unlocked and ready. Why does a crowded room feel like a physical weight pressing against your chest? To understand the hidden engine of this personality, we have to look at the biological bouncer standing at the door of human consciousness. In most people, this bouncer is incredibly efficient and a little bit lazy. He sees the background noise of the world, the clinking of silverware, the humming of the refrigerator, the distant sirens of the city, and he simply denies them entry. Not important, the bouncer says, allowing the person to focus entirely on their burger or their date. But in the brain of the person who hates crowds, that bouncer is a perfectionist investigative journalist who thinks every single piece of information is a breaking news story. The way the air conditioning kicks on with a low, metallic groan, that's a lead. The scent of 4 different perfumes mixing with the chemical smell of a new carpet, that's a feature story. The slight, almost imperceptible shift in the tone of a stranger's voice across the room, that's a front-page headline. This leads to a state of permanent hyper-calibration. They aren't just in the room, they are processing the room's entire ecosystem. It's like trying to run a NASA-level supercomputer on a standard household outlet. Eventually, the breakers are going to trip, and they're going to need a lot of darkness and silence to reset the system. There is a secret, often painful superpower attached to this high-definition processing. The ability to detect a fake vibe before someone even finishes saying hello. Because their brain is constantly screenshotting every micro-expression and every shift in body language. They are essentially walking, talking lie detectors. In a crowded social setting, this becomes a nightmare of social saturation. They see the person laughing just a little too loudly to mask their deep insecurity. They see the networking smiles that feel more like dental advertisements than human connection. They sense the hidden competition, the unspoken judgments, and the quiet desperation for approval that permeates a large group of people. For them, the crowd isn't just made of individuals, it's made of masks, and being forced to watch 100 different theatrical performances at the same time is mentally paralyzing. They don't hate people, they hate the static that people project when they're trying to be something they aren't. They crave the quiet corner, the one-on-one conversation, the moment where the data is clean and the connection is real. They would rather have 1 hour of soul-bearing honesty in a parked car than 10 hours of small talk about the weather at a cocktail mixer. The post-social hangover is perhaps the most misunderstood part of this experience, especially in a culture that values constant hustle and being on 24/7. For the person with an 8K brain, a night out doesn't end when they walk through their front door and lock it behind them. In fact, the most intense part of the labor is just beginning, the background rendering phase. Their brain will spend the next 24 to 48 hours processing the massive amounts of data it absorbed. They'll replay conversations at 4 times the speed, analyzing the subtle inflection of a joke, wondering if they were misunderstood, and slowly letting the physical tension of the noise drain out of their muscles. This is the dopamine debt. While the extroverts in their life got a high from the stimulation, the person who hates crowds was spending their neurochemical savings just to stay present. This is why, the day after a big event, the idea of answering a single text message feels like lifting a literal mountain. They aren't being flaky, and they aren't ghosting you. They are in a recovery ward. They need the silence to act as a vacuum, sucking out all the junk data they picked up in the crowd so they can find the frequency of their own voice again. In a world that views silence as empty space to be filled, they understand that silence is the only place where you can actually hear yourself think. From an evolutionary standpoint, this trait is a forgotten piece of ancestral pride that we've unfortunately relabeled as a disorder. Thousands of years ago, the tribe didn't just need the bold, loud hunters who would charge into the center of the fray. They needed the sentinels. They needed the people who stood at the edge of the firelight, the ones who didn't get caught up in the rhythm of the drums or the intoxicating roar of the crowd. They needed the one person whose ears were tuned to the slight, dry snap of a twig in the darkness half a mile away. They needed the observer who could sense the subtle change in the moisture of the air before a storm, or the hidden tension in a neighboring tribe's body language during a trade. That is the person we're talking about. Their brain is still trying to protect the tribe by scanning the noise for threats. In our modern world of neon lights, constant notifications, and 24/7 connectivity, we've relabeled this ancestral wisdom as overstimulation, but the core of it remains the same. They are the guardian of the threshold. They notice the glitch in the matrix simply because they are the only ones in the room, not distracted by the matrix itself. This high-definition life can be a deeply lonely one if you don't understand the mechanics of it. It can make a person feel like they're a ghost at the party, watching everyone else participate in a game they don't quite have the manual for. But there is a meaningful, radiant truth hidden in this struggle. Their sensitivity is not a defect, it is a fine-tuned instrument. They are the ones who notice the exact moment the late afternoon sunlight hits a dusty window in an old cafe and turns a mundane scene into a poem. They are the ones who can feel a friend's sadness before that friend even finds the words to describe it. They are the curators of the meaningful in a world that is increasingly shallow and loud. Their rejection of the crowd is actually a profound act of respect for the individual. They choose the quiet because that is where the truth lives. They choose the exit plan because they know their own value. And they refuse to let it be drowned out by the noise of people who are just talking because they're terrified of what the silence might tell them about themselves. Have you ever seen this in someone you love? Maybe you've seen them go quiet in the middle of a loud dinner, or noticed how they always seem to find the one empty hallway in a busy museum. Or maybe you've felt it yourself, that sudden, overwhelming urge to just step outside and look at the stars for a minute. If that feels familiar, stop apologizing for your HD brain. You aren't less than because you need to step away from the broadcast. Your brain is doing its job beautifully, intensely, and thoroughly. It's recording a world that is rich with detail, and it's okay if you need a break from the stream. When you take your Irish goodbye, you aren't running away, you are reclaiming your sanctuary. You are the architect of the deep, and the world needs your vision more than you know. At the end of the day, when the music stops and the crowd finally goes home, it's the people like you who will be there to explain what it all actually meant. Your silence isn't a void, it's a reservoir of everything the rest of the world missed while they were busy being loud. And that is a magnificent way to exist. The physical relief of returning home to a quiet house after a day in the crowd is more than just comfort, it is a biological homecoming. As the door closes and the static of the world fades, the brain of the high-definition processor begins a process of decoupling. All those thousands of screenshots taken throughout the day, the cashier's tired eyes, the flickering neon sign, the aggressive hum of the city traffic start to settle like dust after a storm. In this stillness, they begin to connect the dots that everyone else walked right past. They realize that the person they spoke to for 5 minutes wasn't actually angry, but grieving. They realize the chaos of the office wasn't just noise, but a sign of a deeper systemic problem. Because they weren't swept up in the tide, they are the only ones who can see the direction the water is actually moving. This is the quiet power of the observer. While the world praises the loud and the fast, the truth is often found by the ones sitting quietly in the back of the room, with their back against a solid wall, watching the exit and seeing everything. You don't need to fit into the crowd to be important. Sometimes, the most important thing you can do is stand at the edge and describe what the rest of us are missing. Take a deep breath, find your exit, and remember, you aren't leaving the world behind. You're just finally going to the place where you can hear it. Think about the way your body finally exhales when you step into a cool, empty library or a quiet park at dawn. That isn't just relaxation, it's your nervous system coming back online after being jammed by the frequency of the crowd. We live in a society that treats more as better, more people, more noise, more connection, more speed. But for you, more is often just messy. You understand the value of the signal-to-noise ratio. You know that a single, clear note, played on a piano, is more powerful than 1,000 people shouting at once. This perspective makes you a natural curator of beauty. You are the one who finds the hidden gem bookstore, the quiet hiking trail, the one song that perfectly captures a feeling everyone else is trying to ignore. Your avoidance of the crowd isn't a retreat, it's a search for clarity. You are looking for the signal in a world that has forgotten how to stop the static. And in that search, you find truths that the crowd is too busy to notice. You see the pattern in the chaos. You see the heart behind the mask. You see the world for what it really is, and that is a gift that requires a very quiet place to be truly appreciated. So the next time you feel that heavy resistance at the glass door, listen to it. It's your brain reminding you that you were built for depth, not for the surface, and that your sanctuary is the only place where your 8K vision can truly shine.